Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of our Facebook Live Make-Along series. Hey, buddy. Another trying week has gone by, but I do have hope for brighter days ahead, so let's stay positive. In today's episode, we will be covering cold connections, and I promise you an absolutely riveting episode this afternoon. What I have for today's project are round, flat, and chain nose pliers. I have an automatic center punch, but a nail and a hammer will serve the purpose as well. I have a ball peen hammer, great general all-purpose hammer. You should have something similar at home. I have a ruler. I have a flat file. You can also use needle files. I have a riveting hammer, which is not mandatory, but I'll tell you what its benefit is when we get to using it. I also have my favorite Italian cutters here. Everything we're using today is available in our online store, from bench blocks with rubber bases to our cutters to rivet hammers and such, and we'll talk about it as we start to use all of our tools. So, you got a glimpse of this guy in our first episode when I went through some of the projects or techniques I like to go over during these sessions. And here he is. He's a great earring, so you get some practice with your sawing techniques to cut out some shapes. You get some practice with your hammer form if you'd like to embellish these with some texture that catches the light. And you get to practice your earring wires. And you get to learn a new connection mechanism that, as I've mentioned, is a wonderful technique to have available to you and an absolutely wonderful design aesthetic if you like cold connections. So for our project today, I have 20 gauge wire for our earring wires. I have 16 gauge wire for my rivet stock. I have the shapes that I showed you last week that we cut out. I have some 16 gauge wire for our connection mechanism here, which will hold our earring wire. And that's what I've got. So the first step of our project is to mark where your rivet holes will be placed. So I've marked them here on my top piece. You can go ahead and mark them on your bottom piece. We'll talk about that. So I've marked them on my top piece. I've then gone ahead and center punched each hole, each mark to make a divot. I brought it over to the drill press and I ran a number 55 drill bit when using my 16 gauge wire stock for my rivets. And I drilled all of my top holes. Why aren't I drilling all my holes? This is just from experience. You can absolutely do what you like. If this doesn't serve you, pay no mind. I find, as careful as you are in marking your rivet holes, they tend to become misaligned as you go around and start riveting your pieces together. So the top holes will never change. So I always drill my top holes, my holes in the top piece, and I don't know if you could see on my bottom piece, but I have only drilled, you can mark them if you like, but I've only drilled one hole here. So I'm going to set one rivet here on the bottom. Then I'll go ahead and set an opposing side, which should lock the piece down so it takes out any movement. Then I can go back and drill all of my holes and have the holes line up. All right, let's talk about what's happening here, because there are some technical things that are happening. Down you go. No investigate. All right. So Week 1, we learned that metal on metal moves metal. Well, when setting our rivets, metal on metal will be moving metal also, but in a different way than you might think. So let's circle back to why I'm so precise with the gauge of my wire and the corresponding drill bit. So when I set, I'm going to talk to you about 4 styles of rivets, but I'm going to demonstrate the most basic one. For those of you that don't know how to use a jeweler saw, or those of you that don't have a torch to ball up the end of your wire, you'll always be able to use plain wire stock. And I'll talk to you about the other styles too. So what ends up happening, we're going to use this example here. When I place my rivet and I strike on the top, my goal is to mushroom this wire body over. So what I am making is a very skinny top capital letter I. So the proof is that metal on metal is moving metal here. As I strike the top for the top of this wire body to mushroom over, the body of the wire is expanding in the hole. That is the main reason why my drill bit size must correspond to the gauge that I'm using. So again, when I use 16 gauge wire, I know that I need a number 55 drill bit. If those do not correspond, as I strike my material for this wire head to mushroom over, the rivet will collapse in hole, and you will not be able to set your rivet. The proof that the wire body is expanding in the hole is if you make a mistake, you cannot just cut the rivet head off or file the top off and have the body slide out. You'll see and learn that the metal, as metal does, metal on metal moves metal. So as you're striking the top, the body is expanding in the hole. All right. So this is your most basic of rivet wire. If you have to do a repair on the road, you'll always be able to do this style of rivet. But what other styles of rivets do we have? So this style of rivet gives you more of a flush top. It's a nice style. We have in the same wire body style, you can ball up the end of your wire, and there are 2 options here. You can either set the rivet, so this actually gets set upside down, and we hammer over the wire body part, but as the ball sets against your bench block, it flattens it and makes a nail head. Or you could set the ball rivet in a dapping block and preserve the ball shape of your rivet head. So that's some great options too, but you need a torch to ball up the end of your wire. Other options for setting rivets are using tubing. Tube rivets are a very nice aesthetic because they look like an eyelet. So here's a piece of tubing that I've cut, used a dapping punch to flare the edges so that the edges flare out, and then I'll take my hammer and set the lip of that rivet. It's a nice way to finish a hole for an earring wire. It's a nice way to finish a hole for a link. I like tube rivets. In the tube rivet family, you are also able to, see that? You're also able to cut that tubing north-south, east-west, making 4 tabs that when you set that rivet, they either look like a cross or a flower. So that's a really nice style of rivet too. All right, but again, back to basics, because this is the most basic and can reach the most people out there with the least amount of tools. It's a great one to practice. All right, so let's get going. So again, I've marked and drilled all of the holes in my top piece. These will never shift, they'll never move on you. It's when we start to put them together that they tend to become misaligned. What's the consequence of that? The consequence of them becoming misaligned means I have to drill through again. So then I'm going to have a wonky peanut on the back where I have the remnants of the first hole that I drilled and I also have the second hole that I've had to drill for realignment. So we don't want that. I say this often in class, it's always best to be proactive than reactive. So, all right, so to set my rivet. Now, when your rivet body starts to mushroom over, we want it to mushroom over uniformly. So I don't leave these janky, bejaggly edges on the cylindrical top of my wire. As a matter of fact, I file them to make a nice uniform cylindrical top so that as my metal spreads, it spreads nicely to form a nice uniform nail head. All right, so I'm holding it in my chain nose pliers. You can use your flat pliers also. I just happen to grab these. And I have my file. I'm going to hold this nice and tight, and I've placed the rivet body perpendicular in the right in the base of the plier, and I have a nice tight grip. I'm going to hold this on my bench pin, and I am going to file the top of this rivet. Please make certain that your file stays parallel to your bench pin. If it's not, and you're not mindful, you will shear the top of your rivet, and that will not allow the cylindrical body to mushroom evenly. All right. Now, if you can't see, please, I have these Telesite half-frame magnifiers. It's your personal preference of this style that you like to use. These are wonderful. They're very popular. My personal preference is my Optivisor, and this is on my head every day throughout the day. And it has top quality Donegan optics in it. There is also a light bar or a light face that mounts on this. And I can interchange the lens plates. For my daily driver is my number 4, and when I have to cut seats for stones and set diamonds, I use a 7 and a 10. But my daily driver is the 4, which magnifies 2 times, and gives me just the right focal length for my daily work. What this does is it allows the magnification, the lenses, to do the work for you instead of that muscle in our eye that helps us focus close and helps us look for distance. So these are wonderful. We have them in stock in the studio. All right. So I've chosen to set my bottom rivet first. And again, I will set an opposing side to lock both pieces together. Then I will take this over to the drill press with confidence that as I drill through the other holes, nothing will shift. All right, my aim here, and it depends how many layers you have, this is just a go-to for me, it's about 1 millimeter of wire on each side. Not enough wire, there's not enough material to mushroom over and set your rivet. Too much, and you'll lose control of the stock. So, I'm going to trim just a little bit. My cutters. And then I am going to file the top of the piece that I just cut. This is a great segue into the next part of our lesson. When these pieces, please make certain that every file stroke is the same. As we talk about in class when we are learning to file a light, tight join, each file stroke must be the same so that I have a uniform, flat, cylindrical top to mushroom over as I expect it to. if you have peaks from file strokes being different, those peaks and high points will start to set first, and you will not have a neat and tidy rivet. Okay, so looks like we're ready to set one of our rivets here. Before you set your rivet, what I would like you to do is notice what I call the play, because you will be amazed at how quickly this metal moves and this rivet body expands in the hole. And it's one tiny tap too much that this rivet body will expand too much, and you lose the option of moving it to reposition. So, I'm ready to set my rivet. Where's all the rivet body? The rivet body is here, and that means the rivet is flush against the bench block now. So I don't want to go crazy, tap, 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 because that rivet body will expand more quickly than I am able to flip it, reposition, making sure that there's an equal amount on the front and an equal amount on the back. So I would suggest that you have a light hand here until you are comfortable with this, because one heavy strike or one strike too many, you lose the ability to move, to reposition the rivet. So again, just for yourself, notice the amount of play that you have. All right. So I have here a rivet hammer. Now, this is a German rivet hammer. These are now made in Pakistan. So I have a German one here from when they were in good old days. And I have one left in stock, a German one. And when I went to check this SKU late last year, I see they're now made in Pakistan. So this is a German rivet hammer. This is also a German rivet hammer. This guy has a little round face and a peen back. This guy has a larger square face and also a peen back that you can double up for texture. It's your personal preference. Do I have to use a rivet hammer? I don't. I can set with anything. But the beauty of the rivet hammer is it has a really small face, because we're usually setting really small things. So it's the perfect tool for the job. All right, so these are great. I have, both of these are the last that I have in stock, and they're the last of the German rivet hammers, and they're available on the website, and I'll go ahead and list everything we use here in a separate Facebook post, and I'll go ahead and list all of the tools that we're using in the description on our YouTube channel. All right, so back to our project. So please make sure that everything is aligned. And I am going to give a very light strike. All right, still have some play here. So now I'm going to flip my piece. I'm going to rivet the other side, and I'm going to give a tap, tap. Now usually in class I pass this around. You can see that the rivet body has expanded in the hole, and there is less play than before I struck. I'm going to flip it over again, give another. Now I'm going to flip it over and give it another. And that was the strike. So now I notice, I would pass this around so that you could feel it in class. The rivet body has started to expand in the hole. And it is a little more challenging for me to reposition the rivet to make sure that I have an equal amount on the top and an equal amount on the bottom, but I still can move it. It's going to take a little bit, so I'll try all sorts of things. I'll kind of rock it on the bench block. It kind of starts to shift. Excellent. Ooh. All right, so I want to make sure that I have an equal amount, which you can't see this, but I want to make sure you hold it up, and I want to make sure that you have an equal amount on the top and an equal amount on the bottom. So now the next round that I do, I'm going to hit once, reposition, and eventually you're going to get to a point where the rivet body expands enough that you can't move it, and you will have taken the play out of the rivet, so you can rivet all you like on both sides. I suggest that you strike, strike, flip, strike, strike, flip. right. I hope you can see that, but I have a beautiful little stud brass rivet to start to connect my layers together. When you drill your holes, please make certain, I have some 220 sandpaper here. You can handle this however you like. Some drill bits give you more burrs than others. You want to make sure that your sandwich is clean. So, when I drill my holes on my top piece, I always check the back and sand off any burrs. If you have burrs between your layers, your material has the possibility to pucker or dimple as you start to layer your materials together. Again, be proactive. So what I would do is I would keep some sandpaper handy. Just be mindful. For all the holes that you drill, take the time to go ahead and sand away your burrs. All right, so I shall return in a moment and put on my safety glasses, and I am going to bring this over to my benchtop drill press, which we also have available for sale. It's a handy little unit, and I am going to very carefully, I'm still going to hold this really tightly, and I am going to very carefully drill through one of these top holes, setting an opposing side rivet to lock this piece in place and take away any play. I shall return. Now, as your rivet body sets with this style of rivet, you may notice that there are some sharp edges where the cylindrical body of the rivet has started to mushroom over. You can either take a very small ball peen hammer and hammer around that sharp cylindrical edge to have that metal lay flat. You can also look after that in your finishing, pre-finishing and polishing to take off those sharp edges. Again, I always think about wearability. All right, let me go ahead and set my second opposing side rivet. So what I have here is one of the top little V parts that will be the mechanism that will end up being my earring wire connector. So go ahead and figure out which side is up, which is this side here. Go ahead and choose a rivet. File the top, making certain my file remains parallel to my bench pin, so I have a nice, flat, flush, cylindrical top. I can't tell you how hard to press with your file here, but I find a little more pressure stabilizes my file stroke. And you should be able to feel the file teeth cutting your stock. Side here. Sometimes it might take some finessing to get your wire components through the holes. It's all right. Okay. Oops. Get in there. And now that he's flat, we'll go ahead and file. I'm very sad that you can't see my bench. For those of you who are in the studio, it is always a creative, chaotic mess. My bench has never been cleaner because I originally planned to do this series at my bench, and you all would be quite impressed. It's very neat and tidy and organized. Strangely, I did know where everything was, but just visually, it was a hot mess over there. File, file, file. Okay. All right, so we shall repeat the same process with this guy here. I see that I have a facet. You don't want that. Hammer. Make sure your rivet is through all of your pieces. Flush against the bench block. Strike. Keep everything together. Flip. Reposition to make sure there is an equal amount of rivet body on the front and the back. I'd rather you have a lighter hand at first. You can always go back with a heavier hand, but once that rivet body expands in the hole, you are committed. All right, I still have a little bit of play here. Oops. Shimmy that up so that I have that equal amount on the back. Now keep an eye on how both sides are setting. Sometimes the part on the back or the part on the front that you can't see is misbehaving and either folding over or starting to shear. You'll see what I mean if and when that happens to you. So please have an eye for keeping an eye on both the front and the back of your rivet as you set it to make sure that it has remained in position and to make certain that it is setting properly and behaving itself. All right, this guy's looking good. I can commence setting both sides. now that I have set this ear wire component, I've taken away any opportunity for these shapes to become misaligned. I am now more comfortable going to my drill press and piercing through each hole, knowing that they will not be misaligned when I go to set all of my rivets. I'll be right back. Think about any questions you have. Alright, well I sand the burrs off. Oh, hey Bob, the bench is... Maybe I'll bring the phone over. It's looking good. Oh, hi, thank you so much. Nice to see you. Alright, so what questions do you have so far? Nothing? Come on, guys. Nothing? Would you like me to set more rivets? It's a riveting demo, is it not? Absolutely riveting. I can set some more rivets for you. Are you questions? Nothing? Nothing? Alright, well, let me show you how this goes on. Pendant, make cold connection rings like the flower rivet sample I showed you. For making bangle bracelets, if you love to solder, which I hope you do, you could torch solder your bangles closed. If you don't have a torch at home, or you're sharing this project with a friend or family member on a rainy Saturday, you can take that same bangle project that we do in class for our soldering lesson, and you could forge out the ends to be a little bit wider. There's two ways you could do it. You can either overlap your ends. So imagine this part is solid, this is your top. So you can either rivet them, my finger's in the way, you can either rivet them this way together, where the rivet goes through vertically, or you can put them, if you have super thick stuff like some square wire, you can put the ends together like so and place your rivet through horizontally and join those together. So there's another cold connection option for you. You can also put things on things with cold connection. So I've made these flowers, and I made this wiggly vine. And I can attach my flowers here to my cuff stock. This is a great earring project too that I really want to do with you guys. I might do a separate video for this, but I could make at least 2 flower shapes or 3 flower shapes in small, medium, and large. And I could ball up the end of my wire or do something as simple as a little scrolly-do. make my little stopper. This is a great cold project. I would more than likely ball up the end of my wire and flatten it to make a nail head to look like the center of the flower. And then I could nest my other, or you could do one piece, but I would probably want some movement, so I might do at minimum 2 pieces, maybe 3 pieces. You could also use your disc cutter, which I'll have a demo for disc cutters in an upcoming video. You could put just a simple disc in the middle to be the center of the flower, and then I can bend this up with my round nose pliers to give the layers enough room to move, and then I could form my earring wire and have a wonderful earring project. So that's cool. All right, I don't know if anyone out there in the World Wide Web would like me to set any more of these rivets. If you have any questions about using wire for rivets, hope I didn't forget to tell you anything. I don't really care what you use for rivets. I have 16 gauge, just a great general all-purpose size for me in the studio, and it's easy for me. I know it's a number 55 bit. I also have, this is, you could probably get this in Ace Hardware. You might have seen those displays. I think it's called K and S metal displays, and they have all sorts of tubing and sheet and rod, all sorts of stuff. So I have this 1/16 brass rod, and if you don't have the drill press at home or in your studio, we have, or if you're traveling and you want something that's portable, we have some 2-hole punches here, and this 1/16 brass rod happens to correspond to one of the sizes here, which happens to be a 1/16 inch hole. It gives you 1.6 millimeters, and the other side of it gives you a 3/32 hole, which is 2.4 millimeters. And this guy also comes in another size with bigger holes, but this would be one that you could use with stock and material that you could find in a hardware store or online. 1/16 brass rod, and you can use your hole punch that you can use with or without a vise to drill your holes and have that exact size to correspond. We have our rivet hammers here if you need them. We have our wonderful European, made in Italy flush cutter. This flush cutter, many of you have used it in the studio. You can see mine has a ton of love on it. I would buy this cutter again and again and again, but I won't need to because it will provide me reliable service behind the bench for the rest of my days. Just only cut things that are softer than it, which is gold, silver, copper, brass, bronze, aluminum. You don't want to ding up these. You don't want to ding up these finely calibrated cutting blades. This is a beautiful, beautiful cutter. You'll have it forever. Treat yourself. So we've got these. I have fancy automatic center punches. Speaking of treat yourself, but a nail and a hammer works just fine, but the spring-loaded center punches are nice to have. We also have your needle files. This is a nice quality set. I also have a European set if you'd like, but for $8.95 you can't beat it. It's great, and you have a variety of sizes that you'll use all the time. We have our Telesite half frames here to help you see. I have big bench blocks with rubber bases. I have bench blocks without rubber bases, the 4x4 square. I also have this adorable little bench block with its own little baby rubber base. It's really cute, and these are all on the website. And then I also have another style that I know you've seen in the studio. It was the first iteration of bench blocks with rubber bases. And it comes with a 3-inch rubber base, a 3-inch steel puck, 3-inch diameter puck. It also comes with a 3-inch diameter nylon puck, which offers you a non-marking surface if the work that you do requires that, or if you think that would be a helpful trait for your bench block. So we have a ton of bench blocks for you. I have a cabinet full of bench blocks. You may be starting out and have one, but you will find an accumulation for them. It's a staple in the studio. Well, if there aren't any more questions, I think I shall bid you adieu. Be kind out there. Stay safe out there. I will post this video tutorial to YouTube. I will also be setting up a Patreon page. We're almost complete with our Patreon page. If you would like to support the content that you, I hope, enjoy here in our Sunday sessions, it would be very helpful as we all try and get through these trying times. I know it's tough for everyone. It certainly is tough for us. So we are trying to adapt to new ways to bring content to you and teach you how to make wonderful, shiny things. So we'll have our Patreon page up if you would like to contribute and sponsor. Yay! And please tag us with all of your wonderful makes. I love to see your benches at home. I love to see your workspaces. I love to see what you're making. So our hashtags are Atlanta Art Worx with an X. Autocorrect will correct it to a K, so please correct the autocorrect. I'm like, I know what I'm typing. It's works with an X. And then also hashtag get to works with an X. Your autocorrect will correct it to get to work, which is great, but I would like you to get to works. So speaking of getting to works, I can't wait until life resumes to normal and back to brighter days when we can all be here in the studio together in a community setting to learn to make wonderful, shiny things. But until then, I look forward to well, I was going to say to seeing you. Hi, Robin. So I'm imagining seeing you all and your smiling faces, and I look forward to seeing you again next Sunday for, hey, what are we going to make next Sunday? I'm thinking of, please send me your comments of what you would like to learn to make. But I have a project for next week, and I have my pieces all ready to go. So we could do this flat, but what I thought I would do is introduce you to the dapping block. Now I think I'm going to use my oval dapping block for this project, just due to the shapes that I have. Let me get them. We sell the oval dapping block. We also sell the round standard dapping block. So here's my inspired project for next week. See my tracing paper. I've already cut my brass for my bottom layer. And I have a little scalloped edge earring base with a cute little cactus on it. And I think, I know we will learn to use the jeweler saw to cut and pierce, so I'll go ahead and review that for my returning students. Those who have tried the jeweler saw and are finding frustration, I'll change your life. Those that are just starting with the jeweler saw, well, this is going to be a great lesson to cut your learning curve in half, and yeah, it's going to be good. So we'll learn to use the jeweler saw to cut. I'll talk to you about piercing, but I'm going to have my brass back, and I'm going to have my cute little cacti cut out of copper. And then I will rivet these guys together, and I will show you how to use the dapping block. So the dapping block, they have metal and wood. The wooden dapping block is less of an investment and will give you an introduction to adding some dimension to your metal. And maybe the next lesson from there, if we cover sweat soldering, I just have to figure out how to get this rig over there to show you how I've got to have hands to use the torch, and I've got to have a hand to hold the camera. So I'm going to try and figure it out. This would be also a good sweat soldering project, but I think just for now, since I'm limited because it's just myself, I will turn this into a riveting project for you, but I may talk to you about the concept of sweat soldering. All right, I think that's it. If there aren't any questions, I think I will bid you adieu. It's beautiful blue skies here in Georgia today, and that's it. I hope you all stay healthy, stay well, stay positive, and thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it very much, and I look forward to seeing you again next Sunday, same time, same place. Thank you.